So for all of you that have been following me on Twitter for a while, you are used to seeing my Friday pizza, right? Friday nights are pizza night, and I do pizza and I do a whiskey sour usually. So I thought that I would go ahead and put together a little short video on how exactly I do the pizza. Now, currently it's Thursday evening, and I generally try to start my pizzas either on Wednesday evenings or Thursday evenings because it works better if it can sit overnight, or 2 nights even better, in the fridge to proof. You just get a little bit better flavor out of the things. So thought I would walk you through how exactly I go about it. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make something called a poolish. And this is just kind of the starter that we're going to use for our pizza dough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a teaspoon of yeast, a quarter cup of, I'm using bread flour or high gluten flour. You can do this with all-purpose flour as well. I just prefer the bread flour. I'm just going to shake this up a little bit. Now I'm going to add a quarter cup of tepid water. And when I say tepid, I just basically mean that it's not cold, but it's not boiling. You want it basically about 103 degrees Fahrenheit. So kind of the temperature of a bath or a hot tub, right? All right. So that is combined. And we're going to let this go for an hour or so. I want to see this start to rise. And from there, we'll go ahead and make the rest of the dough. For that, I'm just going to need some more bread flour. We'll use some sea salt or just regular kosher salt. We'll use more flour, a little bit of olive oil, and I'm going to do it in a stand mixer because I have one, but you could do this by hand as well. All right, so now what you can see here is that this is puffed up nicely, so we know that the yeast is doing its thing. So we're going to add this to our stand mixer with a cup of water, again, tepid water, and about 2 cups of flour, and we'll see from there if that feels appropriate or if we need to add a little bit more. All right, so I've added the poolish to the bowl of my stand mixer. I've got a cup of water. I'm just going to get that started mixing up a little bit there. Just makes it a little bit easier for it all to incorporate. Not really necessary probably, but it's just a habit, to be honest. Now I'm going to add in 2 cups of bread flour. A lot of people will say that you need to use like a 00 flour, which is what they would traditionally use for like a Neapolitan style pizza. And I've used it before as well. It's really good. But it is not the easiest stuff in the world to find. There's just a pinch of salt. I use a little bit of sea salt. You can use kosher salt. I'm going to attach the hook, and I'm going to let this go. Now I'm also going to add just a little bit of olive oil. The olive oil will help the crust to crisp up, just FYI. So we're going to let this go for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, somewhere in there. And we'll feel it. And what I'm looking for is I want it to be tacky, but not sticky. So I don't want, if I touch the ball of dough, I don't want the dough to come off on my hands. I just want it to be a little bit tacky. Okay, so this has been going for just a little bit. And I don't know if you can see this here, but you can see that it's sticking to my fingers. So I'm going to add just a little bit more flour. And we'll let it go again. Okay, so I have taken my dough out, and it's a little sticky, This isn't bad. I don't mind it on a little bit on that side, but it's mostly just very tacky. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this out, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a knead, just till it gets a little bit smoother. And then we're going to put it back in the bowl for the stand mixer to let it rise for about an hour, hour and a half, just until it's doubled. So there's that. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of olive oil, put this in the bowl. I'm going to cover the ball, and then I'll cover it with plastic wrap. So what I did, I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. I took the dough out of the stand mixer bowl. I kneaded it on the bench just a little bit, on the table, just a little bit. Pulled it into a ball. Then I put a little bit of olive oil inside the mixing bowl. Rolled the ball around in it so that it was lightly covered. And then I covered it in plastic wrap. We're going to let that sit for about an hour, hour and a half. All right. So it's been about an hour and a half or so. And you can see that the dough was nicely risen. So let's remove this. I'll clean that bowl here in a sec. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually split this in two. And I'm going to put these into individual containers. So first, let's just get this into a little bit of a ball. And then I have lightly olive oiled two of these Canberras, but you can use whatever. Or if you want, you can keep it all together. Just use a little bit larger bowl. And then if you don't have a lid for it, you can just use plastic wrap. All right. Put this in here as well. And then these are going to go into the fridge. And as it turns out, I probably am not going to make pizza tomorrow night because my daughter is up from Kentucky, and I will probably be doing stuff with her. It is my middle daughter's birthday weekend, so we'll probably be getting together. All three of the kids will be here, so that'll be fun. So this will probably be done on Saturday. All right, so it is Saturday, and Hannah decided that she didn't feel like running into Columbus today, so we will go ahead and make our pizza tonight. So if you may recall, we made a batch of pizza dough on Thursday night, and I've split that into two. So I have two different containers. You can kind of see that this is risen. So I'm going to just punch this down a little bit. And I'm going to leave them out to come up to room temperature. I want to do that a couple of hours before I'm going to cook. Because with it cold like this, it'll be difficult to roll out, flatten out into pans. And you can do that a number of ways. It's really how I choose to do it. So we're going to let those come up to room temp, and then we'll be back in just a few minutes to show you how it all goes together. All right, so it is about an hour before I am going to cook. So we're going to turn this on to the highest that my oven will go, which is 500. Now I have a pizza stone down here in the oven. So the reason I want to turn this on now is I want that pizza stone to be ripping hot by the time that I put the pizzas in. So now that we are about an hour out from making pizza, I'm going to go ahead and start getting my toppings prepared. So I have in the fridge a blend of cheeses that I put together. There's my one. It is mozzarella provolone and a little bit of pecorino romano. Not a ton, but a little bit in there as well. And then I'll also put over the top of it, I'll also do some Parmesan Reggiano. So that is what we have going now. So first I'm going to slice up my pepperonis. I'm going to slice up some olives as well. And that'll be what goes on my pizza. Hannah's is just going to be cheese because that's the way she likes it. So. And I'll make sure to do enough for myself and a little extra for the dog. Because Abu likes his pepperoni. Don't you, bud? The next thing that I'll mention is sauce. You can buy canned sauces and so forth, but I'm not a fan of those. I actually prefer just to use canned tomatoes. I have the Cento San Marzanos that I'm just going to toss into a blender. Or you can hand crush them as well. They're the whole tomatoes. You don't have to use San Marzanos, but I think that they taste the best. So use whatever you like, but San Marzanos are the best. And I'm going to just pulse these till they're all nice and broken down. All right, so there's a couple ways you can go about this from here. What I'm going to do, the way I do this most weeks, is I'm just going to throw down some semolina flour. You can use cornmeal or whatever it is that you prefer so that it doesn't stick to the table. I'm going to take my dough. And I'm just going to start to form it using my hands. You can also use a rolling pin if you prefer. All right, so there is the dough flattened out into the pizza pan. I'm going to par bake this in the 500-degree oven for 4 minutes, and then I will pull it out of the pan. All right, so the crust has been par baked, and I do this because I have found it hard for me to put things directly on a wooden peel and get things to slide off without making a mess. Also, my oven doesn't get as hot as like a regular pizza oven. This oven goes to 500. A regular pizza oven, if you are at a pizzeria, I mean, they're like between 800, 1200, maybe higher if you have a stone or, one of those wood-fired stone Neapolitan ones. So this kind of solves a couple of problems. So I'm going to take the crust out of the pan, and then we're going to go ahead and start topping. So I'm going to start, obviously, with some sauce, which again is just pureed whole San Marzano tomatoes. One thing I will also mention, you may notice that I have things in these deli containers. I use these constantly. I just get them at the restaurant supply store. It's a lot better than getting Tupperware and stuff for my money, just because I don't have to worry about mismatching lids or anything like that. Now, from here, you could throw on basil, oregano, whatever it is that you prefer to use. I'm actually just going to add a little tiny bit of salt and pepper. And then we'll go ahead and start adding the cheese. I don't want to go too heavy. Because I found that if you go too heavy on the cheese, then it kind of destroys everything else. And then all you really have is a big pile of cheese. If I want that, I'll just get a Chicago-style pizza casserole or whatever. So that's pretty good right there. Okay, now we're just going to do half of this for me. And we'll finish with some Parmesan. It's also, just FYI, it's worth it just to get decent Parmesan Reggiano from your grocery store rather than buying the big, jar of it that you can get. It's cost effective, tastes better. There are fillers in the other stuff to help keep it from clumping and things. It's not actually cheese. So there we have it topped. Now we'll go ahead and put this in the oven. Okay. Now typically, while my pizza's cooking, is when I make myself a whiskey sour. So I will also demonstrate for you how I do my whiskey sours. I'm actually out of fresh lemons, so I am using the lemon super juice that I made. I mentioned on Twitter if anybody happened to notice that. But I'm going to go with, this is the Whiskey War from High Bank Distillery. It's a Columbus distillery. This is a high proof. It's 59%. Usually I would go with a rye, but a good high proof whiskey is going to do the trick for you. So I'm going to go 2 ounces. Then I'm going to do about an ounce of my lemon, maybe a little short because this is a little more potent than regular lemon juice. Now I'm going to do a half ounce of, this is a Demerara simple syrup, but this is a 2-to-1, meaning that there's a cup of sugar and half a cup of water. So a lot of the simple syrups that you get are 1-to-1. So there's a cup of sugar, there's a cup of water. That goes in. And then I'm going to add an egg white. Now, I've changed the way that the order in which I do this. I used to do a dry shake first and then finish it. Dry shake meaning no ice, and then finish it with a shake of ice. I've actually altered that order. So, first we're going to do a shake with ice. Nice. Now I'm going to strain the ice out. Get rid of that. And next we're going to do a dry shake. Again, meaning no ice. The reason for this is the egg white will generate a foam. There we go. Boom. And then I'm going to do a few drops of Angostura bitters on the top. And then some Amarena cherries. And there is my weekly whiskey sour. All right. So it's been about 12 and a half minutes. Again, this is going to vary for everybody. This looks pretty good to me. Just go ahead and pull it up, pop it on the tray. Then we're going to let this cool for about 5 minutes before I cut into it. All right. You can hear that crunch. And so you get a little bit of color on the bottom you get from having the pizza star. And let's give it a taste. Consistent. It's kind of a mix between like Midwestern style, Chicago tavern style pizzas. And it's something I've been doing for about 30 years, although I continue to change how I make them. Just find different things here and there that I like different, and so I change them. So anyhow, hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about how the pizzas that you see on my page every Friday, in this case Saturday, are made. So cheers.